Hello, everybody, and welcome to the weekly tournament report. I am Steven, that's Zach, and who's this guy? This is Matt Phillips. You may have seen him from the top-down view a few times on the live stream or on some recorded games we put on YouTube. But you're seeing him now, more importantly, because he is the overall Winter League champion for 2013-2014. And Matt, it's a pleasure for you to be here.
Thank you, Steven. It's good to be here.
Yeah. Well, Zach, run it down, man. Let's really get into this.
The real question here is, who is Matty P, also known as Matt Phillips? Matt, we just finished our Winter League just like a week or two ago, and you qualified for all three top eights for Thrones, Netrunner, and the Star Wars card game. You won the Thrones top eight in an epic come from behind, have to win 2 games in a row in the finals because it's double elimination tournament. Which we talked about here. You also, a couple stats really quick before we ask you some questions, you had 357 total points across 3 games. And just so anyone watching wants to know how our point system works, in a tournament, for every win, you get 3 points. For every loss, you get 1 point. We have some achievements and stuff, so you can earn bonus points and stuff. But assuming you won every single game in a 4-month period, to get your total points, that is 119 games. I know you didn't win every game because we played. So, by my estimations, you had to have played roughly 150 to 175
It's a lot of games, to be sure.
Which, if you do the math, is roughly 37 games a month. So, Matt Phillips basically lives here.
I do. I'm not sure what that says about me. I think you might need some more LCGs because I obviously have way too much free time on my hands.
Need more time.
Well, let's talk.
So, first off, congrats, man. That's crazy.
Thank you.
Crazy amount of points, crazy amount of wins. I'm sure your win percentage here is 65-70% across 3 games. We have a competitive scene for each game, so first off, congrats.
Thank you.
Yeah, huge.
Huge congrats. And we'll pick your brain about how to be good at these games.
Well, I want to know, so the interesting thing to me is that most players who come into the LCG scene are like every tabletop gaming player. It's like, oh yeah, I used to play Magic for 10 years, or I've been into board games for 20 years and decided to make the jump. Whereas you were more or less out of this zone completely, and then you just kind of stepped in to the store, both literally and figuratively, and now you find yourself at like more or less the pinnacle of kind of this ability to play these games. So what was that whole experience like? How is it to go from 0 to 60 more or less in the tabletop gaming world? Is there anything that you learned kind of along the way that you could share with people? Because it really is fascinating to find somebody who has no background in card games who just jumps in and then does really well.
Yeah, I think I did certainly dive into it. It was very much an addiction. I mean, coming here and actually playing across the table with people that I didn't know but yet instantly became friends with was just a great experience. Obviously was very into Game of Thrones, the story, and then the card game. So very much just drew me right in, like sucked me in. And, I wasn't very good for that first few months or 6 months or however long it was. But, I read somewhere on the internet that talent is a pursued interest. So, you do something long enough and you'll eventually get pretty good at it. So
nice. Well, what is it that really made you stick with tabletop? So, right, you come in and it's like, oh, I like Game of Thrones. I'm going to pick this game up, maybe take it home, and that's the end of it. But you come back and you're playing and you get hooked. So what is it that set the hook in for you? I'm just kind of curious because I think we all get different things out of these games. What was it for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's the competitive experience of being across the table from someone and just like, wanting to mow them down for all the times that they've beaten you.
That's unique to Thrones. It really is, though. Like that killer, I want to kill you. That's a Thrones thing.
And the thrill of building up and actually being able to eventually do that is just very, thrill-inducing, adrenaline rush there for a few minutes. And of course the social aspect. I mean, you make a lot of friends and you go where your friends are when you're bored. So this is where I go.
Nice. Zach, what about you? Pick Matt's brain.
Oh man. I think it's not uncommon actually for a player to be introduced to this kind of thing through an LCG. I know the collectible aspect of a lot of games drives players away. For people watching, we have all sorts of levels of players that watch these kind of videos. Do you have any advice to people that are relatively new on how to what does it really take to become good, to win, and any maybe encouragement to help them get there?
Play games. Just keep playing. I mean, you will eventually get good at these things. Watch other people. Watch the tricks that people do. Watch the decks that are winning tournaments. Pay attention to that kind of stuff and know the cards. I mean, and you're going to know the cards just from playing games. So basically, just keep playing.
Play a whole bunch.
Yeah, play a lot. Play until you know what you're doing.
37 a month.
Yep. 37.
That's the number.
In tournament
benchmark.
If need be.
It's just tournament games.
So you went. This is a 4-month period of time. A lot of games, probably a lot lost in the abyss of memory. But is there any one game that sticks out to you over these past few months that you either completely experienced that crushing feeling, or that it was good for some other reason? Can you remember anything like that?
Yeah, there's a lot of games that are very exciting. The most recent one, though, I guess that it calls to mind is the top 8 game against Sean Clemens, where he had beaten me in the Swiss round. So going into the top 8 finals, the way it's structured, I would have to beat him twice consecutively to win that top 8, and I was like, there's no way I'm going to beat this guy twice in a row. He stomped me, and he's got my number. He knows exactly how to beat this deck. So I did manage to pull it out. I had great setups, and everything went my way. I was able to get some control cards in and lock him down a little bit, and so just took both games before he could really get the hammer down.
Wow.
It was great.
That's amazing. I love it.
Yep.
Well, why don't you join us for a rundown of these weekly tournaments? Offer any insight that you have while we're going, since you're obviously knowledgeable about everything here.
About all the games.
And then we'll revisit towards the end and see if we have anything else to ask you.
Sounds great.
Excellent.
So, strap in, boyos.
Well, first up, we have the weekly Star Wars LCG tournament, who was actually won by someone who I don't think has won a Star Wars tournament yet, Kendall Bright.
Yeah,
huge congrats
absolutely.
on that. I think it's his first tournament win. And he was running Falcon Chewie, looks like Super Friends, and Repair and Refurbish. It says Navy Scum, which is really cool to see these weird affiliation spreads.
But really, what is this about?
This deck?
No. What is this whole thing about? There's this movement now where it's like, by the way, all those decks at Worlds that were supposed to be the best decks are now losing to random weird things that everyone said wasn't good. So is that a thing, or is that just an anomaly that we can all relax from and be like, no, we called it right. That was just a weird day. Now it's getting less and less like just a weird day.
I mean, I think what's happened, and maybe it can happen in any game. The games kind of, because there's no new cards, become pretty stale, and people kind of sit on the same decks. So going into Worlds, right, there was still that, like, is Super Friends better than the vehicle decks? Is Sith Control really, like, dominant? A lot of questions are being asked. But then since then, it's like everyone's running the same vehicle deck. Everyone's running the same Sith Control deck, especially around here. And when you know what people are going to be playing, it all of a sudden makes cards really good that were not as good before. So I don't know that it's... I think the Store Championship here really opened people's eyes to the fact that there is a way to beat these decks in the current card pool. Like, we don't need new cards to change it. And it's really encouraging because it's just like, oh, well, keep moving around.
Keep looking. Matt, tell me about your Star Wars experience. You're probably least versed in Star Wars, when you say, or Star Wars or Netrunner, which of the two?
I play Thrones very competitively. Star Wars and Netrunner are much more casual for me. Like, I'll just pop in with my deck and play some games for fun just to see what's going on, what decks people are playing. And, if I get trounced, it's just a learning experience. Basically, like, oh, that was awesome. Like, what you did there, that's totally cool. So, but yeah, I play both those games casually.
What are you running in Star Wars right now?
Right now, I'm still running Sith Control, which has been good for a while, and it's still hard to beat.
Yep.
Still hard to beat. And then I'm running a variation of like a speeder, sleuthy kind of deck.
Nice.
So yeah.
Nice. All right, Zach. Well, what else was Kendall up to over there?
Kendall wanted to give a shout out to Joe and Dennis. Didn't say why. Just wanted to say hi.
Yep.
So Joe and Dennis, congrats. And that's really it. He didn't leave much else. I mean, Star Wars is an interesting place, so not much to really talk about. But he did say Repair and Refurbish was a good
There's
objective.
something to talk about in that you actually you hit the road this weekend.
I did.
You went to a Store Championship. Where was it? In
technically Independence, Missouri, basically Kansas City. Dennis Harlan, world champ, and me hit the road. And yeah,
And so you and Dennis rolled in.
we did.
And how did it go? Tell us about any new decks, anything crazy going on in Missouri?
Well, there was actually some pretty stiff competition. I wasn't really prepared. There was my first round opponent. I had no idea. We sit down and start playing. He rolls out a mat and it's the Obi-Wan mat from Worlds. And I'm like, that's interesting. And I was like, did you go to Worlds? He's like, yeah. He was like, how'd you do? He's like, oh, I got top 8. And I was just like, immediately like, oh my God, I didn't expect this at all. I thought it would be like, I'm waiting to play Dennis because it was going to be intense. Played that game. In that game, it was really awesome. He was running the Marriage 8 objective from 2v2. The objective doesn't do anything in 1v1. There's 2 cards in it that are pretty not great in 1v1.
Yeah.
But Marriage 8 is the boss. She is so good. And he really, I hadn't seen any of the cards from that objective yet, and he played Mara, and I was just in shock. Like, had no idea what was coming.
He was onto the new stuff, man.
Yeah. So that was great. It ended up actually being me and Dennis in the finals, and I was able to beat Dennis, so I won the tournament.
Great.
Nice.
So I would say it went well.
That's always useful. So good folks in Missouri, I assume.
Yeah, it was awesome. Really friendly. Organizer was a great guy, and I think there were 10 players, so it was just a really nice event.
Perfect.
Had a good time.
All right, well, let's move on to the Netrunner side of life. First of all, did he say anything else about his Scum Navy deck? Anything fancy going on there?
The notes I have here are Mercenary, Repair and Refurbish, Jawa. Literally those words.
Jawa.
So I imagine it's just Navy for the pain and Scum for the tactics across the board.
Beautiful. Moving on to Netrunner, Wednesday night, of course, 6:30 p.m. Central Time. You can find that on the live stream. And if you had been doing that last week, you would have seen Chris O'Neill as our winner. So fresh off a top 8 win.
Absolutely.
Comes into the Wednesday tournament and says, I'm still great. He was running Reyna and Wayland. I think both
Seems
of which
familiar.
he was running top 8. Reyna heavy Kaisa programs. And if you actually saw his deck list on the Team Covenant site, which I actually looked at the other day, I think it's 3 knights, 3 bishops, and 2 rooks are his Kaisa programs there. And he's running 3 of the console.
Playing some chess.
Yeah, so he's playing some chess. He's doing Account Siphon, though, which I don't think his original build was doing that. So this is a new, different way of doing it. And it looks pretty cool. Account Siphon is still a thing, 100% a thing, and actually Knight opens that build up a lot because you can be guaranteed to get into that HQ, like first rung of ice, Knight it, Account Siphon it, and you're in. It's kind of like, it kind of does what Crypsis used to do for Account Siphon, where you play, but you had to pay 5 for Crypsis, put a counter on it,
And have the
then
credits to do
Siphon. So Knight's way better. And then on Wayland, he's got Snares now. I don't know if he had him in the original build, but he's got Snares. He said he included a Ghost Branch.
All right. I hope it worked.
For taggy trapping. Look at that double advanced Atlas. Got to go get it. And then, boom, 2 tags. You're scorched up next turn. That looks pretty solid.
He likes them scorched.
And then, of course, Scorched, which I assume he was running 3 of. Key things to victory. Account Siphon to Grendel, he said, was massive. Big deal. If you can, they get that super early burst, but if you can let them eat that bad pub and get them back down to a reasonable level of money, and I mean, if you take Grendel to low credits, you're winning.
That is the goal.
You're winning that game. And then Scorched and Money on the Corp side. Scorched and Money. What's up with Wayland now? Wayland is so themselves in the meta right now.
That's what they're supposed to be.
We're
right?
rich and we just kill things.
I mean, they have. You said we. Are you a Wayland member now?
No, I was speaking as
Oh,
Wayland. Yeah,
I get what you're.
as a representative.
I mean,
not a
they have
fan.
Scorched Earth. They have Punitive Counter-Strike. It's not super hard to tag people these days, and they have money, so they can punish you for scoring, basically. So, I'd be interested to get both your takes on whether that is healthy in general for the game, because it forces the runner down a very different path. Just knowing those tools exist, whether you're playing Wayland or not, knowing you can die at any moment. It kind of reminds me of a Valor kind of set up for Thrones, where there's a plot that just clears the board. And newer players can often feel like it's too good. It's like, oh, I was winning and I lost because you could just clear my board. Most of the time, by the time you've been playing for like 8 months to 12 months, you're like, oh, I totally get why that's absolutely necessary in this game. Is it that kind of concept? Like, is it necessary to the game to have that I'm going to kill the runner from scoring a point and I'll just do my thing.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting place to be in the game. I think, it makes you think about cards. Like, is it Plascrete that prevents that kind of thing? How many of those do you put in your deck? Ultimately, I think it makes the game interesting when there are resets. I think it makes you really think about what cards you're going to play, how fast you're going to play, and the pace you're going to play at. I think if it becomes too big an issue, we might start to think about a restricted list maybe eventually. What do you think? Do you think we'll see
That'd be
that?
crazy.
Let's talk about restricted lists in Netrunner. This is a topic that we haven't breached. And the restricted list, just in general, even in Thrones, you have two sides of that fence, where it's like, it's overly used, it's being used too much to sculpt things and not let the game kind of play out naturally, or it's underutilized, and there's good cards that are getting hit by the restricted list for some houses and are not getting hit for other houses, and it's causing imbalances. The restricted list in general, so like,
Let's go higher up. Let's keep getting higher on this chain.
I just want to go here because you have like the restricted list isn't a normal concept in like games a lot of the time. Bans and erratas are somewhat common. Cycle and set rotation is more common. But having basically you're a tabula rosa for tabletop gaming for me. So I want your opinions on this. How do you feel about the restricted list and like just what it does to Thrones, for instance?
Yeah, I think it's brilliant in Thrones, actually. I think a way to get around having to cycle out cards but still take control of the flow of the game and what cards are dominating the meta. I think it's just a great mechanic to do that, and if handled correctly, it really balances the game out.
Is it a grand ideal to have a game that doesn't need a restricted list? Is it possible?
I mean, is that even possible? Because, it seems like, I've just come into the LCG world, but it seems like power creep is always going to be a thing. As new cards come out, as new combos evolve, there's going to be power creep eventually. And how do you control that? And how do you keep certain decks from dominating the meta?
Well, I think the interesting part of that conversation for me is that there's different states of a game, right? Like, so there may be a card that in the first 12 packs of a game is really good, just absurdly strong and dominant. But in time, enough tools and stuff get released into the game that make it less of an issue. So to me, the cool part of the restricted list is you can put stuff on and take stuff off as answers are put out, right? Where, if there was nothing at all that could prevent Scorched Earth, it's the kind of card that you could easily put on a restricted list along with whatever you want to put on there to kind of curve down the power level of it until there is enough time for you to release answers. That being said, the problem with the restricted list, and I think it's a brilliant idea too, I think it gives them a lot of control on what they can print. It's also a backup to errata. Errata is the worst in my opinion.
The worst.
Because it's just so confusing for new players. But it's a backup to releasing stuff that maybe is too good. But the problem I was getting to with the restricted list is for it to really work, 2 cards have to be on it, right?
Yeah.
So you can't just restrict Scorched Earth. If there's a problem with Scorched Earth or Overload or whatever card you have a problem with. So it's really in Netrunner it's particularly interesting.
Yeah.
Because there has to be, and it's more than 2, right? It's like it has to change the way you can possibly build the deck. There have to be enough cards on there. And when you have such a small card pool, especially with Netrunner or Star Wars right now, it's hard to restrict stuff because it's already limited.
And Netrunner is so interesting too because the splash options are massive.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh yeah, you restrict Scorched and Sea Source, now you're on mid-season Scorched. Or like you restrict all means of tagging somebody on the passive turn or the active turn.
And the problem with that is now MBN has all the tag stuff restricted.
Yeah.
And it's like, even if they're just wanting to do their normal, hey, psychographics for 87 million.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So I guess to answer the question, at least on my end, as far as is it kind of troubling right now, I would say when I first saw Sea Source double Scorched out of like a big ice Wayland thing, it was like, so you're telling me that if I run, I'm going to lose, but if I don't run, I'm going to lose. And that felt really bad. But then you start running Plascrete, or you start draining their economy with the things like Account Siphon, or even you include decoys, you include disruptors. I mean, there are things out there, as non-ideal as they may be, and it's not so bad. And I think a lot of the issue with this right now is that runners previous to this were very used to getting away with a lot a lot of reckless running. I'm running with 2 cards in hand because I have 2 R&D interfaces out, and I'm going to hit 3 cards and maybe win the game. And it's like, oh yeah, I just scored 5 points. That's cool, no problem.
Dead.
But now now you're dead. So I think it has changed the pace of the game to a more mid-level pace, a slower pace, and a lot of players are still taking these fast-paced decks and expecting to not die. But they do. And maybe that's good, and maybe that's what FFG wants. I have no problem with it currently where it is, even though I've died many, many times.
We've all died. This is fact.
Things that Chris has learned, Crescentis is not worth it anymore. Good to know for all would-be Reina builders. You heard it straight from the horse's mouth. And then Grindel Refinery is amazing! Exclamation point, Ghost Branch. Which to me says, I show them a Ghost Branch or I hit them with a Ghost Branch trap early, and now anything that's advanced
Looks like a Ghost Branch.
could be anything. It could be a Ghost Branch, could be anything. But Grindel Refinery is so amazing because it is an advanceable card, number one. And it's an advanceable card that pays off if they don't take the bluff. And if they do, it's not that bad for you either.
If you install Advance, and they trash it, that's totally fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
They had to run, and then they have to pay to trash it.
Yeah.
We're good with that.
Yeah.
If not, you get money.
If not, you advance, and then pop it.
Boom, 16 money like a boss.
Love it. And for all the would-be players out there, man,
Whoa.
Kindle and Netrunner show psychographics onto Grindel Refinery was the greatest thing that I've ever seen in my Netrunner existence. Yeah. It was like psychographics Grindel Refinery for 9 advancements, pay 9 for 9, and then pop it. You do the math. That's amazing. So that exists. That's a thing you guys should all be aware of.
That's awesome.
Kindle's the first one I saw do it. I don't know if he got it from somewhere else. He's a really original deck builder, so I don't think so. But amazing stuff. Shout-outs from Chris to his bros. He didn't write that, but I said it. Leland and Cameron.
My bros.
And that group of 3, it's beautiful to see little kind of mini metas, the people you test with and play with.
They go to college together.
Go to college together.
They play test a lot.
And he said for testing and ideas, and I know that it's always good to have a family there to support you when you're testing decks. So
the old testing family.
Shout out to Leland and Cameron. Matt, any thoughts, Netrunner? You got anything fancy? I'm about to move to Thrones.
I'm just enjoying the ride on Netrunner right now.
It's your wheelhouse. It's
Going
a
for
good
a run.
Netrunner's a good enjoy the ride kind of game.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's like I might find an agenda. I might die. Don't much care.
You never know what you're gonna find out there.
Let's talk about Thursday. You were here for Thursday.
I was.
I was here as
Matt
well.
surely won, right?
Oh. No.
Yeah, I thought he was the best, but he got smoked by his
there was
art.
a melee Thursday.
Yeah, I remember seeing the 2 of you.
Uh-huh.
And well, who won the tournament? Let's get to that
Sure.
first.
It was Sean Clemens.
I remember seeing the 2 of you and Mr. Clemens with lemons
Yeah.
battling it out in a melee
Yeah.
that seemed like it went on forever.
One could say that I actually gave Sean the win and therefore took it from
One
Matt.
could and would say that, yeah.
So a king was made.
Well, it was in a very non-conventional way, right?
Sure.
So it was like, this is about to happen. Matt's about to win. He's got the make an example, and he's got shenanigans. Mel's put the old lady
The army
in,
with the
put the
guy.
red faithful in, put it on Mace.
The plan was to into the breach a Red Queen's Faithful, and then move 3 power from my own house onto the Mace, which says you need less power to win as power is on
So
Mace.
immediately you need 3 less power to win.
Yes, correct.
Correct.
That was the plan.
That seems like a good play.
Yep.
Now, the issue that I had with that, of course, is that I was in 3rd at the time, and also 3rd around the table. Looked like Sean couldn't get to 15. Nobody thought he could do it, truth be told.
Let it be known.
And then Matt pulls us into the breach thing, and I see Red Queen's Faithful. And anytime I see Red Queen's Faithful, I want to destroy them.
Yep.
I've had so many games of complete stompery.
It's like, oh, I have 14 power and now I have none.
It's a terrifying card. So anyway, I think I ended up nightmaresing the Red Queen's Faithful, which is
You did.
Good
you
payback.
Did nightmares, yeah.
If anyone remembers that, I'm sure some people remember that regionals game where you nightmares my Ironcliff.
I was about to bring that up. Yeah.
Yeah. It smells like karma.
Nightmares about nightmares. Well,
yeah, except this was Thursday and that was a regionals, but.
So actually, your sin was greater. Nightmares and him at regionals was way worse.
it's true.
Or better.
At least it was one-on-one, though. You knew
So
you were ready.
I
Yeah.
owe at least one or two more
Sure.
of those. Then it sounds like. Yeah, but then Sean came around and he had to make an example. I think is the thing.
He made an example of all of you.
Yeah, and then it
Mhm.
was. Well, I didn't get around. I could have won. Dude, I had like a 5-claim power challenge.
That's how it goes in the melee.
It is. It's never what you think it is. So let's talk about Sean's deck. He was playing Stark Song of Ice, and he called it Big D, which is heavy defense. And I've seen this deck, and it's awesome. Very interesting. Has a lot of standy, frozen outpost, stand,
That
defense
card.
stuff. Very good. Mirror Read is a restricted, of course. Frozen Outpost and Endless Endurance, Compelled by the North, Bound by Duty, and Ranger of Winter.
So you basically don't lose challenges.
Those are some of the big cards. I love Endless Endurance, first of all. But yeah, you defend challenges that it doesn't look like you can win. You win them on the defense, and then you attack. It's kind of classic theory of battle.
That feels so Starky too, really.
That's what he said. Hold on. I'll actually skip on to what Shark learned. Maybe FFG knows what they're doing. Defense for Stark is very solid. Because they keep getting all these, is Stark the defense house? And it's like, everyone's like, yeah, they're the defense house, but nobody plays defense with them.
It's so hard to
They all
win
play
defense.
Siege or they go crazy. And it's like, yeah, that's really good. Frozen Solid, Endless Endurance, key things that led to his victory. Frozen Solid.
Bane of my existence.
I hate that card. And Frozen Solid, Mirror Read,
Yeah.
Winner, Stark, didn't go anywhere. Won Nationals at Gen Con a couple years ago, and I don't feel like it's
It's a
gotten
more
worse.
defendy version.
Mm-hmm.
Now they have a way to make your hand just stay small. It's like,
This is a deck to watch out for, and it's a sleeper until now.
and this weekend we have the Throne Store Championship coming up, so I hope he plays it. I'd
You
love to
think
see
he
this
will?
thing.
Sean never plays the same deck twice. I've noticed that.
In a row.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He always, it's like, I'm running Wolves, and now I'm running Siege, and now I'm running this defense stuff, and then who knows what he's running next. But he said, shout-outs, FFG, for making me defend.
Solid. Very solid. So, going into, Sean wins the tournament. Sean and Matt are two people that win quite often on the weekly basis. We have our store championship this weekend, 11 a.m. What are you thinking going into this? Obviously, you guys, didn't you go to Missouri recently? When was that?
We
A couple weeks
did.
ago?
Yeah, it was a weekend before this past weekend. We had a lot of fun. Yeah.
And Greyjoy Old Way won that? You let Greyjoy Old Way win that?
I didn't play it, so I don't know if you could say that I let it win. But yeah, Greyjoy always took it. It was quite a surprise, I think, to everyone that was there. Really.
It's an
everybody.
awesome deck. Kaiser built up a version of it, probably pretty close, 90% or so, and you can just totally see. Now, of course, I was destroying it, but you can totally see how it would do well.
Yeah.
It was like the first game. It nearly got on top there. Once Maiden's Bane is cranking, you can't win a challenge. It's very good, very very good.
Yeah, I saw Kyle Vansel lose a Cersei with 6 or more power on her to a power challenge into that old way thing, and I just had to duck my head and go, "Oh man, this thing is crazy."
Wow.
Once it sets up, it is very hard to do any challenges unless you're willing to sacrifice characters every single challenge.
Yeah. Most
Which is
people
tough.
are just not
Yeah.
ready for that. Yeah. And then it's got
That's your
great.
Greyjoy.
It's got the event that saves locations and then attaches a duplicate to prevent the Maiden's Bane
Wow.
craziness.
Yeah.
It's got things that play locations out of your discard pile, put them into play. It's got First Mate that puts a warship into play from your discard pile or hand. So Maiden's Bane is out, pretty much across the board. The key to this deck, I think, is taking out the naval escorts, which you can do by taking out the characters. If you can do that, discard all the Greyjoy characters, naval escorts pop. That takes a lot of the power out of that deck, which is something to look out for. Also, Dry Season is big, favorable ground if you can land it. Money.
Money.
You gotta be running those
Very
cards
cool.
first.
So,
Yeah.
going
You
into
do
this
have to run
weekend.
those cards.
Yeah. Going into this weekend, what's going on in your brain? What are you thinking? What are you ready for? Any advice for people watching that may end up showing up? You don't have to tell us
Well,
your deck list or anything. I don't want to.
Yeah. I'm excited about it. I know what's running around our meta. I have no idea who else is going to turn up or what other decks are going to show up that maybe another old way might just kick my butt. But, I'm excited about it. I'm just excited to see who shows up, what people bring, and it's going to be good.
What do you think now that we're on Thrones?
Yeah.
More questions, of course. What do you think give me top 3 deck lists. Top 3 decks, just general archetypes that are the top dogs right now in Thrones.
So we've got Landing No Agenda.
Okay.
Probably running City Plots.
All right. So you think
And
Landing No Agenda is still the stuff?
I still think
not
it's
being restricted is a huge deal.
Absolutely. Until that gets restricted, it's going to be the thing. We've got Baratheon Hollow Hill with Army Recursion. I don't know anyone here that's currently running that, but you never know what people are going to show up with.
You think it's that strong?
It's that strong, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right.
And then, some form of Targ burn is always in there somewhere. So.
Yeah, you have a history with Targ.
Yeah,
Nice Hollow Hill.
yeah. It's that's my challenge in the Swiss is if I can get past that burn hump, then I'm good.
The old burn hump.
I've taken the burn hump before.
Yeah, I bet you have.
I never really get
We all
past
have,
it.
really.
We all hit it.
It's like it's that moment where you're in the tournament and you say, "What are the chances I'm going to hit a burn deck?" Really?
Yeah.
And you do, pretty much always. But then when you say that and you prepare for a burn, you never see it, not once. There was like 2 burn decks at Worlds. It's like. So you just never know.
The threat of it possibly existing.
Yeah.
Is the true power of the burn deck.
It's like even just the threat of burn is like, well, now I can't play Val ever again.
Mm-hmm.
Like never can I do it, and then like I'll do it, and that'll be the burn day.
That'll
and
be
then,
the burn
And
day.
then if there's no Val, there's no burn until I don't know.
As it happens.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a karmic thing. I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know.
So Store Champs this weekend. Why don't you guys tune in and watch Matt Phillips at the top table? No doubt.
We're gonna be talking about you next week. You gonna win?
I hope so.
Well, we'll be streaming at 11 a.m. Central Time is when that tournament starts, and it's going to be a heater. So check that out, teamcommando.com/TV. You can find it there with all your favorite people playing. And
Are you playing too?
some of your non-favorites.
No?
I think
Okay.
so. I don't know. There's some personal plans that may or may not fall through.
Gotcha.
You know how it goes. Let's talk about. Oh man, this thing was crazy. This Store Championship.
So what happened on Saturday?
This weekend. Oh my gosh, Netrunner Store Championship, 22 people. Crew from Dallas, crew from Joplin, believe, and a few others. All the Tulsa crew showing up, and we had ourselves a Netrunner tournament. This was a legit Netrunner tournament.
It was the real deal.
And we saw all manner of decks. I think there were some really impressive creative decks, and then we saw a lot of the Wayland that we were expecting, and a lot of criminal, just doing criminal stuff.
Just being good.
But you know who won the whole thing?
I don't actually. I mean, the person
Yes,
who did it.
it was Joe.
I was gone.
It was
Say it ain't Joe. Joe did not win that tournament.
Joe won it, and
So that's back-to-back Store Champs for him.
here's what happened. I'll tell you my story because it involves Joe. First round, I played Joe,
Yep.
and he 4-0s me.
Boom.
Like that. Second round, I'm moving on, and I start doing well, 4-0, 4-0. And then in the fourth round, come back from lunch. So I'm feeling okay. I 4-0'd, 4-0'd, and 0-4'd. I just need
You're
to
doing all right.
kind of
2
split
points
out
would
or
probably
get
get you
another
in,
4-0,
yeah.
be solid. And I play against Tim.
Oh, Tim Bun.
Oh, Timmy. Oh, Tim
Timmy.
Bun. So, yeah, then that goes downhill, and I get 0-4'd. The only saving
Wow.
grace of that game being that I did quest complete him, which we both were really happy about. But
That's
ultimately,
fantastic.
even with that absurdity, it was not enough to win that game. So that was the end of my tournament experience. But Joe, kind of at the fourth round, right at the end, I was like, you know what? I was talking to, I think it was Tim. Joe has the best decks here. I'm pretty sure that Joe has the best decks. But Joe is notorious, and he's not really, but we always say this, for making it to the top 8 and then getting beat, right? It's like Joe he's there. I think he's probably the best deck builder / player combo that we have in Tulsa.
In the store. Yeah.
But it's like he'll always go top 4 or top 8, and then by some weird anomaly, like me tagging him 20 times and mid-seasoning the perfect hand out, he will lose. But that did not happen this time. He was on fire, and he destroyed. So huge congrats to Joe Freeman, who has really, to me, sealed his spot in the Netrunner echelon.
I mean, he did it 1 week after winning a Star Wars Tour Championship.
He's like Super Saiyan Matt Phillips.
This guy's crazy. It's important to know. He's
shoes.
Whoa,
is that a
bird.
challenge?
I heard he was going to come on Saturday just to prove he could do 3 in a row. He's never played Thrones.
If anyone were to do that hat trick, I would freak out. You're the best one to do it, Matt. If you do that hat trick, oh my gosh. What will I do? Free ice cream for a year.
It is important to note that Joe had the second most combined points in the Winter League. So he was right behind Matt. Matt was able to edge him out. But it's worth noting that Joe only gets 2 games of points, whereas Matt had the third. So I'd be interested to see the win percentages. But he was at about 3/4 way through the league. They were both kind of looking at each other's points and like, hey, how far away are we? How close is it? And Matt really ran away with it. But congrats on a second place in the league as well.
So what was Joe running? Well, he was running Gabe, and his big addition to the Gabe was Knight. So again, Knight, huge
Get
card,
where you want to go.
big card, and he said blue cards for the win, of course. So he was running account siphons and inside jobs and all that, and then he was running Grendel on the corp side. We've seen a lot of Grendel wins. Seriously, a lot of Grendel wins.
That's a really good card.
And he has basically into the run ice. He said he has 16 into the run ice in there, and then anonymous tip, snare, and score fast. So this was a Grendel deck that threatens the destruction of Grendel, of Scorched, of tagging, but it really wasn't focused so much on that. It was more of a just score agendas out because he knows the runner can't run.
Yeah.
And if the runner can't run, you have plenty of time in those early games to score cleaners out or score advanced atlas out, and that makes your game way smooth.
Yeah, I mean, with cards like Punitive out, it's just so easy. If they have a turn where they end and they're not in a great position money-wise or card-wise, you can drop a 3 agenda advance twice and know that, like, if they run, you res ice, and they get through, they're going to have to spend enough money to where you can just...
You threaten the Scorch.
Even
always.
if you don't have it.
Yeah, you
it's
threaten
like,
it.
If they know you know that if you have it, you win, it puts them in a really weird spot, and it's super interesting. I love Grendel.
It's so good. Yeah, it's really good. In fact, the key things that led to his victory, he said the decks are just really good, and I would agree with that. And he also said people are scared of Grendel, and I would also agree with that. So, nailed that one. What did he learn? He said Imbian is a coin flip, either really good or really bad for Gabe Criminal. It's really kind of all about that early Astro, and if Imbian draws it and if they score it. If they draw it and score it, then your game just got way worse.
Got way harder.
But if you can do some inside job shenanigans, maybe Knight inside job to do something nice there, you're looking good if you still had Astro. I said Project Atlas is one of the best cards in the game, and I would have to agree with that.
A 3/2 that if you can advance more than 3 times, you're going to get a tutor anything you want? Yeah.
The thing, a 2 advanced Atlas means the combo is live. Like in your head, it's live. Because you have to assume they have either 1 Scorched or 1 Sea Source. It's just got to be there. So they can immediately go get the other 2. So once that Atlas is advanced twice, you literally can't run.
Yeah.
Unless you cannot die. It's not even a maybe situation anymore. And then he said more blackmail because Grendel is happening. That card was used to great effect in a lot of his games. I know that in some of his final games, it was a critical piece. And he only had 1 in his runner deck.
I feel like Blackmail is really such a meta call card. Grendel being recently released and popular, there's a lot of agendas right now that give the Corp bad pub, a lot of reasons for the Corp to have bad pub. As a Netrunner player, both of you, do you think that card becomes more or less valuable as time goes on?
I know my answer. So, Blackmail, obviously, a 1 cost event. If the Corp has bad pub, they can't res ice. You make a run and they can't res ice. Here's the thing. I think right now, where we are in the game, this is a cycle that's focusing on bad pub and using it, having it, giving it, getting rid of it.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff. When we're looking at a year from now, like where the game is, either 2 things are going to happen. Either the runner's going to get reliable ways to give bad publicity and therefore make this card good of itself in the deck that can just self-contain its tools.
Yeah.
Or that's not going to happen, and this card is going to be nowhere to be found. Because if you're going to a world's meta, and you might even think 15 to 20% are going to be running Grendel. Is that worth the blackmail? If you don't have a way to consistently give it, you just have to hope that they take it in some way or another. And more importantly, I think if we see a lot of blackmail, then we see a lot of getting rid of bad pub happening. Then we don't see any blackmail, and then we don't see any getting rid of bad pub, and then we move on. That's essentially how it works.
The cycle.
So I don't know. It's one of those cards that, like, I kind of hit on this in the unboxing. It's better than I gave it credit for in the unboxing, especially right now. But it's still ultimately a conditional card. So we're just going to have to see where bad pub is on the universal meta. And then if it's still there, yeah, it's great. It's really great. Any disagreements? Matt, you disagree with me?
No, I mean, any card that keeps the corp from rezzing ice seems good if you can make that consistent, especially if you can then shut down the ice before you do that, so then they just have no answer. But
Boom.
yeah, if you can pull that off, then you're in a good spot.
And I think Joe was in a good spot like that
Yeah.
many times.
Yeah, well, I think it is such a powerful effect that I'm glad it is as conditional as it is. And at the moment, the corp has to do something, really, that enables that to even happen. But yeah, not to be able to run and not have them res ice is crazy.
It can be really good.
Like it can be game winning if played at the right moment.
Yeah. All right, so shout outs from Joe. Hey, shout out to us for being awesome. Covenant for being awesome. Thank you, Joe. You're awesome. People who drove in from Texas and Missouri, I will second that. Thank you guys for coming. It was great to have a more varied meta and to see what other people were doing. What we found out is there's a lot more Tag Me in Texas. It's got a nice ring to it, right? Tag Me in Texas. So that's a thing that we don't really do up here as much, and it's good to see those different metas kind of start to talk a little bit. It's like, oh yeah, that can be a thing for sure. But we do run a lot of psychographics, so it probably evened out. And he also said the top 8 guys, everyone who made the top 8 said it was super fun. So what more can you ask for out of a
Very
tournament?
cool. Sounds like a really
Top
great
8
event.
super fun. All right, Matt, that's your first Covenant tournament report. What
Excellent.
do you think? How are you feeling?
Yeah,
Feeling
I mean,
invigorated?
I do. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
you ready?
awesome.
I feel great.
Yeah, I'm be on YouTube star now.
Do you want to go build some decks?
I want
is that
to
what's
play
on the
some
horizon?
Games of Thrones, yeah, and play some Netrunner Star Wars, obviously.
Let me finish it out with talking about your particular deck, this Black Sails deck that you've had for a very long time, and this is something that was brought to my attention by it was actually Nathan Bradley, who we talk from time to time about Thrones, and I think a lot of us here in Tulsa have kind of gotten on that phone.
You guys try to team up on me, don't you?
We do. We're like, how do we beat Matt? No, but he said that one thing that you do, which I agree with, is that you'll take a deck and you will play it, and tweak it, refine it, 1 card, 2 cards, and it's like a 3 or 4 or 5 month process.
Yeah.
And then you take that deck to like an event and you do well.
Yep.
And I'm keen to play a deck for a week and then change everything drastically. So what's your process ultimately on deck building? You've had this Black Sails deck from the beginning. How much has it changed since that very first moment?
Oh yeah, since the first time I built it, I mean probably 30% different. Plots have changed, characters
That's an important
have
30%
changed.
though.
It's a very important 30%. Events are constantly changing. Locations are constantly changing. I mean, it's a combination of figuring out what works best in the deck, what's really efficient that you can get out like maybe every game, or if you get it out it just puts you over the top in that game, what works best for the other top tier decks that are running around. So I mean, it's a combination of all that, and it's constantly changing depending on what other people are playing, what new cards come out. Maybe you just want to play around with some new cards this week, and I'll throw something different in there. So
What's the most recent card that you changed?
oh gosh, a bunch. I recently put in an interesting plot, Valor Dohaeris.
You don't have to go into it. I mean, there's big events this weekend, so I don't want to reveal too
Hold
much.
the phone.
So
The man's running Valor Dohaeris.
yeah, so get ready for that.
There's some juice in there, man.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think Baratheon and would maybe make it where they couldn't kneel.
I get it.
Mhm.
But the question is, having said that and knowing that you do change your decks on a week by week basis, will it make the cut for this weekend? Who knows?
Time will tell.
We don't know.
We'll know next week.
We will.
We will know. So join us next week, guys, where we will actually get to talk about how well Matt did. Even if he didn't win, we will be sure to
Oh, yeah.
to keep an eye on him and keep you guys apprised. If you want to watch that event live, please do. It's a great little community forming up around our Twitch presence. 11 a.m. Central Time this Saturday. Store Championships for Game of Thrones, the last of our Store Championship series. Tune in and love it. Thank you guys for watching. Matt, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll see more you'll see more from us every time you tune in.
Every time. You got any final shout-outs, Matt? This is your
Oh,
time.
gosh.
The spotlight right here. Who do you want to thank?
Shout out
This is a crowning achievement.
to just all the Thrones players here in Tulsa, all the great players. Joe is just a monster in the games that he plays. Maybe he'll start Thrones someday. Maybe we'll get him a course set one of these days.
Matt gets him a course set.
Yeah.
Here you go, Joe. But yeah, just a shout out to all my friends here in Tulsa and elsewhere, all the guys in Missouri last weekend that hosted the Tulsa guys. It's just such a great community of players in all the games that I've met. I mean, everyone is very friendly and very welcoming, so that's just a great place to be for the games.
Sweet.
Yep.
Keep it up, guys.
Yep.
Keep being great.